between self-love and selfishness?
Like, self-love is just making sure that you're taking care of, like, yourself, and that in its basic senses, where we normally don't put ourselves first.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, being selfish is, like, you're making the conscious decision, like, this is about me, like, I need to, like, all of this is for me, not just caring for yourself.
So don't you think maybe we should, like, start off with being selfish? Because, like, with me, like, I feel like if I don't be selfish and, like, think about myself, like, I won't get to that point where, like, it would be about, like, you know, self-love with me. Well, shouldn't it start off with being, like, selfish and then maybe hopping off with a selfish wagon, and then, if it makes sense?
How do you define it, though? Like, what is the difference in your mind when you think, I'm being selfish right now versus this is self-love right now? How have you defined the differences for yourself?
Maybe I don't feel like there's any difference in my opinion. I think, like, yeah, sometimes I do need to be selfish and think about myself, like, you know what I mean? So I don't really see any difference between being selfish when it comes down to yourself and self-love. I don't know. Yeah.
What about...
And that's okay. There's no shame here.
No.
But, like, for me, I would say acts of kindness towards myself. Like, having a bubble bath, going shopping for tea, or, like, doing little things for myself that someone else probably can't do. Like,
so is that self-love or selfish?
It can be both. It depends how far I go. But at the beginning, it starts off as self-love. Things I need to do to care for me, my well-being, and recentering myself. Whereas, I mean, I can be selfish for myself, but that's where I think self-love is.
I think self-love from my personal thing would be, like, when I do my hair, that's my self-love. When I do my nails and, like, you know what I mean, I take care of myself. I don't think that's being selfish. But I think what being selfish would be, like, if I was a parent and I did my hair, but my kids were, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's a selfish act, right? But I think, like, self-love is just, like, how do you give to yourself where it's not coming from somebody else? You know what I mean? Because sometimes we look for love when somebody gives it to us. But loving yourself is the self-love.
That's true. I feel like all self-love feels like selfish in the beginning if you haven't been giving it to yourself enough. So that can be hard to like,
that is true. That's
differentiate
probably what she's feeling too.
both of those. And then, like, when you make those first steps, you're like, I have to just put myself above it. And then you can have, like, still selfish moments can be healthy too.
For sure. And that's why I asked, because a lot of times I feel like when we have conversations, particularly as women, particularly as Black women, we're wanting to nurture, or we're wanting to take care of other people and create spaces that feel loving for other people. And we're so used to thinking of everybody else that I think in these moments that we need to start thinking about ourselves and how we're caring for ourselves. We get confused of, like, am I being selfish right now? Because kind of like what you're saying, like, we're just not used to it. Self-love is the ways I fill myself up. It's the ways that I give myself the energy, capacity, strength, whatever it is, to be the best version of me. When I think about being selfish, it's when I'm taking from somebody else to fill me up. And I feel like sometimes we end up being selfish because we haven't had enough self-love up to that point, right? For whatever reason, we haven't had boundaries, whatever it is, we get to a breaking point where we're like, I can't, and we end up taking from someone, whoever that someone is, in order to fill ourselves up because we haven't had what we needed along the way. That's how I try to think of it for myself, of what, in this action, what am I doing? Am I filling myself up through whatever? It could be nails, it could be good conversation, it could be reading a book, it could be having good boundaries, because y'all know we need good boundaries, right? So whatever it is, am I filling myself up in the ways I need to, or am I waiting too long to fill myself up, and then my act becomes selfish because I'm feeling like I need to take from somebody, and it becomes a power struggle usually. I'm taking from someone else to be able to get to myself. That's how I define it. What are your thoughts on that?
That makes a lot of sense. The fact that taking it from someone else could be selfish, right? And if you think about situations of, like, rape or those type of things, like that, like that person taking that away from the person, it's obviously very selfish when you rape a person, because you've taken away that person's right or the decision to say yes or no. So you're right on. I totally agree with you when you say that being selfish is more times taking from someone.
If you're the recipient, let's say if we're doing with a partner, the recipient would be like, well, you're being selfish. one to year, like, I'm caring about myself, I'm putting myself first, but your partner's like, no, you're being selfish, you're hurting me. Sometimes you have to be ruthless. Love yourself more. No, honestly. Love yourself more. Put yourself first in order to care about you. And it doesn't matter how it comes across, but at least you're loving yourself. And, you know.
And if, just for a quick example that came to my head, is like when you're having a sexual relationship with a person, right? And you think about, oh man, that guy was selfish. Most times it's because he got his and you didn't get yours. And you're like, I don't want to be with that person again. Or you speak up and say something at that time. You know? But if I think back to that situation again, it's just like it was a one-sided.
So how do we practice self-love in partnerships then? Since we're talking about how do we negotiate, is it possible to practice self-love in partnerships? Do y'all feel like it is?
Yes.
Yeah,
With the right partner.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does that look like?
Spending time with yourself.
Yeah.
Like, so many times I've been with females, like female friends, and they're always wrapped around their partner, but they're never separate. Like, it's okay if you don't hang out with us, but hang out with yourself. Like, learn what it's like, relearn yourself. Like, you have to always practice being by yourself and practice,
Enjoying your own company?
Yeah.
Right.
But so many people forget that. They lose themselves, whether it's kids, school, work, partner, like.
I think that's just what women do on a whole, though, right? We're just giving people, so we're always giving of ourselves. So, and like just example of what we're doing here today, like these workshops have been, in a way, for some people, maybe selfish because you're taking from somebody else's time. At the same time, it may be, self-empowering or just, what's the word we're looking for?
Self-love?
Self-love, because we're taking this time out to fill ourselves up with something good.
Because I think that what we do is we try to find ways to cope. We look for it to come from someone else. And I'm curious, how have you built your own coping mechanism so that you feel like you're full outside of someone else? So that when you're in challenging situations, you're able to have boundaries and negotiate for yourself.
I haven't been in a relationship for a long time, so I don't even know. And I still question myself now, like if I was to get into one, like I don't know if I'm going to be able to, will I be like completely in, or I'm going to be like, oh no, I'm used to Monique being Monique. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how the difference would be. But a lot of the times, my outlet for that, for my coping mechanism is I like to go to Silk Effects. That's my coping mechanism. Because when you go there, I kind of just forget about everything that else is what's happening, right? Yeah. So there's that coping mechanism, and then sometimes it's really just like listening to music on a whole. Because sometimes if you just take in the lyrics and you kind of just lose yourself in it, and then to not sound like a heathen, but sometimes it is going to church, or you know what I mean? Sometimes I like to have that weekly grounding by going to church, because sometimes it brings you back, and every time you feel like you're further and further away, it's just like, oh, okay, it kind of brings me back to that oneness.
I feel like for me, I try to make it so I have like smaller coping mechanisms depending on like the severity of the situation, and I have like bigger things. Like if I'm really upset or like going through a lot, like I'll run, but I don't do that often because it's not like an occurrence that happens a lot. So then I guess like my medium for that would be I'm gonna go on like a walk, and then my smallest coping mechanism is I just like to tune out and then read or draw, just so I can have like that moment. I can do that in almost any space. So that helps.
Do you have any coping mechanisms?
Me either I go do my nails, or I'll sit down and watch a marathon of a movie, just chill by myself with my blanket and my pillow. I don't know. I like to be by myself sometimes too. So I just do my head move, like kumbaya.
So like you like to have a meditation?
Yeah, just Because sometimes you need to gather your thoughts. I'm a deep thinker sometimes, so I need to gather my thoughts and hear myself think. Not everybody, not my child, just myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I like to listen to music as well. I feel like if you're in like a bad place, like I like to listen to more uplifting music. I know a lot of people like to listen to sad music when they're sad, but I feel like it makes it worse when you listen to sad music. I also like to write, and just sometimes just ignore it and just do something else completely. But yeah.
So do you only, for each of you, do your coping mechanisms when things are going on, or is it just like the day-to-day of life?
Definite
Day-to-day.
Definite day-to-day. If you wait, then it could
depends.
be worse.
It depends. Like you're saying, if it's severe, then I have a different strategy.
Yeah.
But the day-to-day, like I have my daily routines, and if I don't do it, like the whole day's off.
Oh, so you have like an actual routine that you do every day?
Yes.
How do you stay motivated to keep your routine?
Okay, so like I normally wake up 5 a.m.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, no choice.
So sorry.
I normally wake up 5 a.m. Depending, like, I used to do running. I loved running. I stopped that.
Mm-hmm.
But normally I wake up, and on my way going to work, I do listen to podcasts, or I'll download different sort of inspirational, motivational speaking, and listen to it on my way, like my drive. When I get to work, because of the clients I work with, and it can go from one extreme to the next.
Mm-hmm.
I listen to my gospel music, like Muss or jazz, and that's how I start my day. And then I have like my little breaks in between with my little watch a funny YouTube clip during lunchtime or do something. But like that's like my most of my days. In the afternoon it always changes, but like the morning ritual, like
so
always.
for you that's important to keep consistent.
And then I write down like how my day went.
So
like
you journal each night?
Each time from work.
Okay.
Because if I don't, I can't. It's great to keep track of what happens at work. If it's a big situation, you go and refer back, but it actually helps me with separating things so I don't take home work. So yeah.
Oh.
I do think journaling is a great activity. And what I've heard from us is that we all have some type of like ritual and routine and rhythm. I think ritual and routine is really important just because we're human, right? Like even our heartbeats at a pace. Like we need something to ground us and to give us a pace. And I found that for me, Sundays are my non-negotiable, right? So my Sundays are mine, and like in a rare case, I might do a work thing on a Sunday, and it's like really rare. It has to be like important enough. But Sundays I tune out of life, to be quite honest with you. And my Sundays belong to me because I need it. It's how I ground. And I kind of like what you said, I journal on Sundays. I do a little bit of everything that everyone has said on a Sunday, actually. Sometimes I sit with my Netflix. I need to watch a movie. I paint my nails. It's just a time for me to get back to me. And I like what you said about our mind is always going. There's so much happening that we need to take time to, one, hear our thoughts, and then two, still our thoughts to get to a place where we feel like we're grounded and like we are in tune with ourselves. Because I think in terms of the conversations we're having, a lot of the decisions that we have to make require being in tune with the self and understanding who we are. How can we know our values if we don't have a self-care routine? If we're not grounded and clear on who we are and what we believe and what we stand for?